Welcome everybody to the Ignite Showcases episode 6. My name is Andres Santi, and today we will hear some interesting stories from our special guest, Maximilian Kort, or his friends just call him Max, and so we can call him Max here as well, as we are among friends. Probably some of you already know what the Ignite Showcases series is about, but as we are always welcoming newcomers, I will just point out the objective of this series, which is introduce and showcase event professionals from the Ignites network to the general public. We hope that by showcasing these individuals and by sharing their experiences, accomplishments, and challenges, we will be able to inspire individuals to consider a career in sport, and also give a glimpse of what actually happens behind the scenes of an event. Event professionals from the Ignites network are called Igniters, and they all have a characteristic in common, which is they have worked alongside one of the 4 founders of Ignites, and they share the passion and desire to strive for affordable, sustainable, and impactful sport events and organizations. Before we go to our guest, I want to shortly introduce myself and accompany it with some photos. So, as I mentioned earlier, my name is Andres Santi. I am Austrian Spanish, so I also have a dual citizenship like our guest today. And I had my first experience in the sport events world with volunteering. Actually, you can see here a picture of me in my beautiful and colorful Sochi 2014 uniform. And later on, I had the chance to work in the Buenos Aires 2018, Sarajevo 2019, and Lausanne 2020 organizing committee in accreditation and sport entries. I've shared a picture of all my teams during these experiences, as they have been tremendously helpful to me. And currently, I'm working at the Association of National Olympic Committees, also known as ANOP, assisting in the planning and further development of the future editions of the World Beach Games. So we have also, of course, prepared some pictures of Max. So let me introduce you our special guest today. Maximilian Kort began his professional career in June 2013 in the International Student and Scholar Services Office at the University of Connecticut as an international services assistant immediately after graduating with a bachelor's degree in exercise science. He was quickly promoted to international advisor, and after almost 4 years in that role, he decided to change his life in order to work professionally in the world of sports. Since 2017, Max completed the FIFA CIES executive program in law and sport management at the Universidad Católica Argentina, and then went on to be part of the accreditation team in the Buenos Aires 2018 Youth Olympic Games organizing committee, then passed on to be technical operator for football and cerebral palsy football in the Lima 2019 Pan American and Pan American Games, and is currently in the accreditation team in the Tokyo organizing committee. He speaks Spanish and English fluently and is working on his Portuguese, Italian, and doing what he can with Japanese. Please welcome all Max.
Hey Andres, how are you? How's it going?
Hi. I'm fine. How are you, Max?
Good. A little bit nervous, but just chilling.
I'm sure we will have a very good conversation today. First of all, welcome and thank you for coming today on Ignite Showcases.
Thank you.
As an information for the audience, I first met Max while working in Buenos Aires 2018. And we were in the same team, so we shared some great experiences and challenges together. So we had this nice journey behind us. And my first question is actually, Max, as I mentioned before in your introduction, You started working at the university as international advisor for 4 years. What actually made you change your mind and pursue a career in sports? And how did you get started on this path?
Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for hosting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you on this. I consider you a great friend. We've had some great experiences, as you mentioned. And I want to thank IGNITX for inviting me to this showcase to talk about my experience. I consider myself very fortunate to be part of this network of event professionals, which are beyond professionals. I consider them very, very good people, first and foremost. So I don't know if I would call it a change of mind that I had from going from the international education field into sports. I think, as you mentioned, my life has always been surrounded and covered in sports. I was born basically with a football ball in my hand. Well, not in my hand, obviously, at my foot. And I, like, being born in Argentina, that's a lot of kids are born with a ball at their foot. And so I grew up with that, playing from ever since I can remember that I have memory. I've been playing football. And then I also played a little bit of tennis, ping pong, or table tennis, sorry, trying to offend anybody. And basically anything that I could try, I would. And then when I moved to the US, we moved with my family at the age of 12. My dad is Argentine, my mom's American. We moved to the US, and in the US, I discovered baseball, basketball, NFL, so National Football League, so American football, hockey, all sorts of other racket sports. And like that, and in gym, like we did a lot of different sports, and that drove me to like sports and try more and more all the time. And I've always been like relatively good at, like, athletically, like figuring out sports. Not with everything, but I've always been okay at everything, but not very good at anything. So my love for sports only deepened once I moved there. And obviously I watched a lot of sports as well. I really enjoy watching football, tennis, NFL, baseball, not so much anymore, but I used to watch it a lot. The NBA, I love basketball. And so when I got to the University of Connecticut as a student, I had no idea what I wanted to do, surprisingly, even though I'm talking so much about sports. I always think it's amazing when an 18, 19, 20-year-old knows what they want to do for the rest of their life. I actually don't even believe in that anymore, that somebody knows what they want to do for the rest of their life. But so I went to UConn with an open mind, trying to figure out what I wanted to study. I took a bunch of different courses, like anything and everything, for 3 years. And then finally I decided to go for exercise science. So basically it's how the body responds to exercise, and with a focus in strength and conditioning. And I still remember the day that, like, so I picked it, and I had to apply to the program, and I had to get accepted. I had to do some volunteer hours, which I did at a physical therapy place nearby, which I had been to, unfortunately, a couple times due to injuries. And I remember once I got accepted, when I went to talk to my counselor that first day to show me, like, the classes that I was going to be enrolled in, I was so excited. Like I saw, like, everything related to sports, and I was like, okay, I think I made the right decision. So I did that. I studied for 2 years in the program. So I ended up studying 5 years at UConn. And right before, in the meantime, I actually worked in the international office as a front desk assistant. To any international student needed help with anything, I'd be there and help them whatever way I could. And so about 2 months before I graduated, I tore my ACL in my right knee, my anterior cruciate ligament in my right knee, playing football, of course. And it was a huge bummer, obviously. So my thoughts before that were, okay, I'm going to work in this field. Like, that's why I'm studying it. Even though I was a little bit afraid, I didn't feel so confident, but that was the idea. And they had actually offered me to apply for a job in the international office right before I tore my ACL. And I actually said no at first. I was like, no, I'm really not interested. I want to go the sport route. But then I tore my ACL, and it was like, okay, recalculating. Let's apply for it, give myself a job opportunity while I recover from the surgery, and then I'll work maybe a couple of years, and then I'll just find a job in the sports world. So that's what happened. I applied, I got interviewed. I knew everybody. It was awesome. I had a very good relationship with everybody in the office, so that they knew how I worked as well. So they took me as the international service assistant. Again, all in the meantime, I was thinking, okay, this is only temporary. I'm going to get back into sport. I even started studying for the certificate exam for a strength and conditioning specialist. And I took the exam, I think the following January, and I passed and everything. So the plan was to get into sports, but 1 year turned into two, two turned into 2.5, and 3.
It turned to be comfortable, no?
Well, part of it was that, for sure. So I got a promotion, like you mentioned, very early on, and so I think that kind of kept me there maybe a little bit longer, because they were devoting a lot of time in training to me, and so I felt like almost like I owed it to them, and I didn't mind learning all that. That's the truth as well. Like I really enjoyed it. And then I started also volunteering as a first-year experience instructor, which was an amazing experience. I basically helped out international students, like 18-year-olds coming from China, Hong Kong, India, Taiwan, to basically get acclimated to the university and understand their environment and see what resources are available to them. And I also started coaching with my friend Juan, at one of the club soccer teams at the university. They had asked us as a favor, and we're like, sure, of course. I love football. I always had an interest in coaching. It's a lot harder than you think if you haven't done it yet, especially when you're dealing with people that are fairly close to your age, because at that point, like, there's a very fine line between like being friends with them and having like sort of an authoritative figure. But so I entertained myself with that as well. But in the back of my mind, it just kept coming back. I probably had a minor breakdown 2 or 3 times a year, just thinking about it. Like, what am I still doing here? Like, I need to get out of here. But I didn't know where to start. Like, I really didn't know how to start researching what I wanted to do still. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to go the exercise route or management. And finally, around the 3-year mark, I met a few people that kind of helped me, like gave me that push and that confidence, and basically opened my eyes to like, hey, if you like want to do something, just go ahead and do it. Like start moving in that direction. So I met Valeria, who's a very nice, amazing Italian friend of mine, and she like I met her and I would talk to her about where I was at, where I wanted to go, and she was like, "What are you doing? Like, start applying." And then I also met another Spanish professor, Yuka. Her name's Tanya. She's an amazing human being, who pushed me to like really apply for programs. She found connections that she had in Spain, and I was really interested in going to Europe and studying there. and living there because I really wanted that international experience. And then I had a friend who, Robert, who did the FIFA Master. And I didn't even know about it. So then I started researching about FIFA Master. I ended up applying. And I also ended up visiting Italy and Spain. And in Spain, Tanya was like, okay, I have this professor that I know, you can stay with my parents and you can visit the program and you can like check it out, no pressure. If you like it, great. If you don't, fantastic as well. So I was like doing a lot of things at once. I was going to Europe for the first time. I was meeting old friends and new friends, and then I was trying to figure out my future at the same time. It was great.
So at the end you applied and you...
So I applied for the FIFA Master. I got rejected because I didn't have that much experience in sports. And I wasn't surprised, and it didn't really knock me down either. It's kind of a shot in the dark. Like I was hoping for it, but I didn't know if I would get it. And then when I was traveling later on in 2017, like end of February, I was traveling with my cousins and brothers, and they told me, and my brother-in-law posted on Facebook something about applying for an executive program in Buenos Aires related to FIFA CS. And so I wasn't on Facebook at that time. My cousin showed it to me, and my dad messaged me on WhatsApp, like, hey, look at what Leo posted. So I looked at it, and I was like, okay, I could go back to Argentina, go back to family, which is I'm very close to them, and stay with my grandma, like get to know her a little bit better at that age, because I've spent so much time away from Argentina that I didn't really know her, and she's getting older, so it was perfect. And I thought, okay, just because I was going to Argentina didn't mean I had to stay there forever, which was a weird mindset I had before that. So I applied in late March 2017. I got an interview in mid-April, and I was on a plane to Argentina end of April. Just like that.
Quick decisions.
Huh?
Quick decisions.
And that's the way it had to be. If I kept thinking about it, I don't know if I would have done it. And then I got kind of lucky in a way, because I met an alumnus of the program pretty early on, and he had been working. His name is Juan Francini, and he had been working in the organizing committee of Buenos Aires 2018, which I was like, what are Youth Olympic Games? And they're in Buenos Aires? Because I didn't even know that was a thing. So he passed my CV, which was great. And then a few months later, I got like 15 interviews. No, I got like 4 interviews. One of them was informally with you and Dima. And then finally, like a couple of weeks later, I got the job offer for accreditation.
and we were lucky to get you, I have to say. And
I'm lucky to get in.
And I see how important people have been for you in your life that have guided you very well, I assume.
Yeah, and you don't even know half of it.
And my next question, I mean, probably many people can relate to this question and this situation. I mean, those people that have already worked in sports. And because after an event like Buenos Aires 2018, which was your first event and also my first event, like really big one where we've worked on, and where you come out with so much adrenaline and motivation to continue working in this sport world. Yeah. Where and how did you actually start looking for other jobs in events?
Yeah. So you forgot to mention one thing though. We left the event with a lot of adrenaline, motivation, and a lot of fatigue as well. Exhaustion. But it was all worth it. So actually before the games ended, I was already thinking, okay, after this, like I want to keep going with this. I want to go into more events, international events. Like I really wanted to just kind of find my way in that world, because I met a lot of people, a lot of international people. I mean, even though it was your first event, you had done a lot of volunteer experiences. And you had traveled to, well, I don't know what your count is already, but a lot of countries. And that really like stuck with me. Neil had been in a bunch of events, our boss. or I should say our leader, Gulia, Vic.
Yeah, many internationals that go on these
Yeah.
circuits on and on.
That was the thing. Like a lot of them were international. We had a really diverse group, and it was amazing. So I was like, okay, well, if they were able to come to Buenos Aires and do this, like, I can go somewhere else and do something related. So I started applying. I started doing research more online. I looked up the events that were coming up. Lima 2019 was probably the first one on my mind. The Pan American Games. And then I just started going on LinkedIn and finding companies and researching the companies and getting in touch with like either human resources people or specific people in the company that might be related to what I wanted. And that I think was like, I would suggest that to anybody that's trying to like keep going on. Like, and a lot of it also obviously was using those contacts that that we had like made during like along the games, because we meet a lot of people from everywhere. I mean, I had 20 some odd NOCs from Europe, National Olympic Committees from Europe as my clients. So I tried to stay in touch with them and see, hey, is there anything in Europe, any event in Europe that you can recommend me for? Because I ended up with a really nice relationship with a lot of them. So I used that LinkedIn a lot, and one day I literally just got like a random connection on LinkedIn from the football manager at Lima 2019. And I was like, okay, why is he finding me? Like, this is cool. So like initially I sent a message to him like immediately and was like, hey, I'm really interested. Like, that was my idea. I didn't necessarily want to go back into accreditation at that point. I wanted to get into the event, the sporting event itself. So I messaged him in mid-January, and he was like, it's hard. I like your profile, but it's hard for internationals to like to apply for the working permit and everything. And I was like, okay, well, I guess not. And then I've been talking to our dear friend Mauro about going to New Zealand, and from one day to another, he kind of like took off and went to New Zealand to do a new experience. And I was like, oh man, that sounds attractive. Like, I could do that. So I applied for the visa. Like, since I have U.S. citizenship, it was a lot easier for me to apply for a visa than just with my Argentinian citizenship. So I had luck in that. I applied for that, got it pretty quick, and then like 2 weeks later, I booked a flight. And in that flight, like, I had a stop along the way in Malaysia and Singapore because I was going to travel to a little touristing with Neo and Vic. So I had like an amazing plan to me. In my mind, it was perfect. Like, I'm going to go to New Zealand. I'm going to find out a job in sports, travel. Great. And then 2 weeks later, I get a message from who ended up being my boss in Lima 2019, the football manager, Giorgio. And he was like, okay, look, it's actually a lot easier. Like, here's what you need in order to apply. You need to come here before and then apply for the permit and all that. And I was like, wait, like, I literally like have my life for the next year planned out. What is the position exactly? And he's like, okay, I'll send you the position. So like 2 days later, he sends me a position, and literally I looked at it, and to me it was the dream job, like exactly what I wanted. So the question was, how secure was the job that I was going to get it? And two, how much money did I need to spend in order to change my plans and get myself to Lima within like the next month? Because there was about a month left less than a month left before I went to New Zealand. So I talked to Giorgio. He was like, yeah, the job is yours. Like, you need to get here. And I was like, okay, here's the plan. And I basically found my way a flight back to Buenos Aires and then Lima, and did a tour of a Tay tour, as Neo would say, through Malaysia and some of Singapore. I was 10 days in New Zealand with Mauro, and flew back, and then was in Lima 2 days later. So it was the lap around the world in 4 days. Sorry, in 4 weeks. 4 days.
And I think this is what you have to do sometimes. Just take risks and go with what is coming, and then sometimes, well, luck also is needed for landing the right jobs.
For sure.
So I just want to remind the audience that please feel free to ask questions to Max in the comment box. You can also ask in Spanish. Feel free also.
Be nice.
In the meantime, Max, since you said it was your dream job, what you had done in Lima, so what exactly was the job in Lima?
So my job, the job title was technical operator, which basically meant I was in charge of like everything related to that, like football on the field of play and in the locker room. So anything that the athletes needed, or coaches, or the international federation, or the referees needed technically related to the sport, I had to be there and supply it to them, or whatever it was. And then on the field, obviously, I had to make sure everything looked nice. Like, well, not me per se, but I had to like make sure nobody, like I was in contact with all the other functional areas, security, technology. I can't come up with them at the top of my head, but event services. So everyone in there to make sure that we had a smooth event, and that basically the field of play, like no one that didn't have to be there got in there. And everyone that had to get there was there and had what they needed. And to me, like I was in the heart of the event, of the sport. And we're talking about Lima, which, like in Peru, football is passion, football is life. And so it was probably the biggest event at the Pan American Games. So it's a really cool experience being there.
Yeah, sounds great. And in fact, we have a question from Larissa, which relates to what you're telling us right now. So Max, what was your biggest challenge working in Lima?
I would say probably at the beginning, because when I started in Buenos Aires, I went into a team that had a lot of experience. So Neo had a ton of experience in games. You seemed like you had a ton of experience. I mean, the volunteering jobs obviously did you well. Vic had experience, and so it was kind of like lined up, and we were fed all this information really quick. But like, it was there for us, and we had a timeline and everything, and it was great. But in Lima, when I started, there wasn't as much games experience on the team. And so when I first started, I felt a little lost. Like I'd never been in that position. I've never done a job like that. So I didn't have that experience. And so at first I was like, what do I do exactly? What am I in charge of? What do I need to do in order to prepare for that? And also there was only 2.5 months before games time in Lima. While in Buenos Aires, there was a year. So a lot of difference before, like in terms of preparation. And so I kind of had to like go around, and obviously my boss helped me out a bit, but I had to like go around and go talk to different functional areas, find them, ask them, okay, what do you need from me? And then figure out what I need from them as well. And just kind of find your way around it. I think that was definitely the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, like being hands-on really, and finding the correct people to talk to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let us move to your current situation at Tokyo 2020, where you're working again in accreditation, as in Buenos Aires.
Yep.
Since, well, Argentina doesn't count as working abroad, I would say, since you're half Argentinian. And if you would have to compare so far both experiences, like in Tokyo and in Lima, how would you rate your experience professionally and personally so far?
Okay.
Between Tokyo and Lima.
So in my defense, Buenos Aires wasn't working away from
It
home.
was a home game.
But, but I hadn't lived there in 15 years. So it was definitely, I didn't have like I had my family, which was like, they saved me in every way possible. But I didn't have like, I didn't have a lot of friends. I had some that I got in touch with. And so the first couple months were hard because people were working, and like I wasn't making that many friends because I didn't have ways to like, I didn't have the environment to like make friends. So at first that was hard. And then speaking language every day, all day, was a change for me, for sure. But we compare Lima and Tokyo, they're not comparable. They're very different experiences. Lima, you have a little bit of a similarity in cultures, definitely, with Argentina. I knew some people going in there. My friend's family, Axel, and their family, who helped me out a ton when I first got there. I stayed with them for 2 weeks. And things were a little bit more disorganized. Not just like a little bit like in the organizing committee, but as well in like life, like trying to apply for the working permit as well. That was a nightmare. Ask Mauro. It was bad. It was a very hard time at the beginning, but slowly we kind of got used to it. And I say we because Mauro actually ended up going to Lima as well, and then Manu and Joaco and Sean joined, which is awesome, all from the team in Buenos Aires. It's amazing. And then Tokyo, on the other hand, you come here and like, I got my working permit the second I stepped in the airport. So it was like in Lima, I had to wait in a police station, then I had to wait at like a judicial court, then I had to go somewhere, I don't know. And then you had to wait a month. And here was, okay, I applied for the visa in Argentina. I got to the airport. They printed my working permit, my temporary resident card there, and I got it immediately. And obviously the cultural differences. Obviously, I mean, I walk around the streets and I don't understand the signs. I don't know what people are talking about. So it takes a little getting used to that at first. But I feel like I'm generally pretty adaptable, and I think you have to be, right? If you put yourself in these situations, you have to realize that things might not be the way you want them to be. You just adjust.
I also find it exciting when you don't understand the people and don't understand the culture. I mean, the signs, etc., and you have to find your way around. No, I guess. Yeah,
and going to the supermarket is still tough. You go there and you're like, oh, what is that? But people are nice. So like, you try to work with a couple of phrases. You start to learn, and signs and symbols and Google Translate.
Sounds exciting, and I have to go there for sure before the game start.
It keeps you on your toes.
Visit you,
yeah.
And I also think the audience is very interested in knowing how did you actually feel after hearing that Tokyo 20 was going to be postponed, and how was the general mood there? How was the reaction of people there in the committee?
So obviously we kind of saw it coming. I mean, you have all these events. I really didn't expect, like the first couple of months of coronavirus, like January, February, even beginning of March, I was like, there's no way we're getting these games are getting suspended. But slowly like all these other like qualification events start getting suspended, and all these like huge events get suspended, like other sporting events, NBA, Champions League, like all the leagues in Europe, like everything. And then you're like, okay, well, it's going to happen. It's just when. And so when it happened, even though we knew it was coming, it was still like, okay, so what now? Because we were getting to like kind of a peak period at work. And then from one day to another, from one night to the next morning, it was like, so what do we do now? And are we going to be here next month? Do we have a contract? What's going to happen? And we didn't know at that time when the games would be either. So like, are they next year? Are they in 2 years? Am I going to stay here the whole time? So it's just a lot of uncertainty and shock. I definitely hit a little bit of a depression for a weekend, maybe 5 days, because you're just like that's why I came here. I came here for the games. Obviously, I came here to experience culture and life here, but it's for the games, and so it was a major downer, and you felt it across everybody that was here. It's inevitable. And then you have the why this happened, and then it's an even bigger downer because the whole world is on fire, it seems. So it was difficult at first.
But now with more certainty, it's isn't things.
Yeah, it's easier. You get used to it. I think that's what everyone's been going through this whole coronavirus period. You just kind of get used to the new reality, or the temporary reality, and then see how things occur afterwards and adjust.
Yeah.
There's not a lot we can do. It's out of our hands.
Yeah.
So
still today, it's not clear. Well, we hope for the best, of course, but nobody knows what's gonna happen.
Exactly.
I have another question. Well, it's not. It's more a challenge than a question from Kiri. She cannot wait to hear Max speaking Japanese. Any words that you want to share?
Kiri, why would you do this to me? Well, konnichiwa. Is obviously like good day. Ohayo gozaimasu. Good morning. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you.
So you're doing your work, I see.
No, I'm really not. I really need to focus more on it. Like I haven't been doing enough.
No problems.
Now I have more time too, so I think like the idea
exactly.
to like work on it a little more. But it's really taking a lot for me to like get down and study.
But it's beautiful to study languages, so yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm learning a lot of Portuguese with all the Brazilians here. So.
Okay. Go to Japan to learn Japanese. To learn Brazilian, sorry.
Before I got here, I said that.
So I have another question from Fa. Is there any lesson learned that you have taken from one event to another? Do you have any example, like practically?
A lot. You learn a lot from each event. An example, I think from anything in life, you just gotta kind of pick and choose what you're going to take from each experience, each person you meet. I think from Buenos Aires, the lesson was more like, wow, I can get through a lot. I thought, because of how stressful the job was and how much we worked and the hours, and working from really early in the morning to really late at night, and waking up always with work on your mind. And that first week before games started, that was really intense. So you kind of are like, oh wow, I can deal with a lot of stress. And Lima is problem solving, I think, because a lot of the things that happened in the event, it was like, okay, the International Federation needs this right now. Okay, hey, Jojo, hey, we need this. How can we get it? What can we do? Okay, we don't. Okay, what's another option? And figuring out, and just learn about the different people and the life experiences of others. I think I've taken a lot away from that, and the people that I met even outside of work, like in Peru, obviously was easier because of the language. So I made some friends that didn't have anything to do with the games. Here it's a little bit harder, but I think you can take lessons away from everything. I'm sorry I can't give like a concrete example on the top of my head.
I know it's difficult sometimes. I must say that your fan club is well appreciating your Japanese. So well done, Max. In the meantime, I will take another question from our spectators, from Shuang Ming. If you could share your favorite or craziest memory from Buenos Aires, or if you have any story, like a personal memory from any team or athlete from, or NOC from the ones that you have.
Okay. I had during that crazy week where we got no sleep and we didn't stop working when all the National Olympic delegations were arriving at the village. We were, like I said, we weren't sleeping. We were working from really early on to really late. I was staying at the village as well, so there was no getting away from it at all. And I remember one time I went to bed. I think I worked the night shift. I went to bed at like 6 or 7, and at like 11, I get a phone call from one of our team members with an Italian member of their delegation complaining that no, like they should have more access on their accreditation, blah blah blah, and like really angry about it because we had to change the accreditation. And I was like, well, no, this is something that we already arranged, like with our main contact, Italian contact, and that person needs to speak to her, but you do need to change the accreditation. She's like, okay, good, I'll tell him that. Things up. I'm starting to get back in bed, kind of, and then I get a call immediately afterwards. Hey, he wants to talk to you. Boom, and gives him the phone. So this Italian guy starts like basically yelling at me, like, how could this be? I had all these accesses and I need this to do my job, and why are you taking this away from me? And keep in mind, I'm exhausted. I'm not even like awake. I'm just like, look, I understand the confusion, but this is something that we had discussed with the Italian contact for accreditation. You need to speak with her. No, but how could this be? And I seriously was like, just listening to him, and I was just like, are you done? Basically, because I couldn't do anything. So that was one moment, like in the middle of chaos, that I don't know if I'll ever forget. And I had some people yelling at me as well in Lima for certain things that were going on. We don't need to get into details.
Yeah, well, I guess the lack of sleep, which happens to a lot of people working in event, like magnify this situation and make them seem worse as they are, but it's the lack of sleep. So, well, we also hope that the people on the other side always understand that, no?
We wish. Not everybody. There are some really understanding people, but not everybody.
Or and any positive memory you want to share with a team or an athlete?
Buenos Aires. Well, we had a team retreat in was it?
No, but I mean with an NOC, an athlete, or
with an NOC.
Or an NOC.
Okay. Well, it was the closing ceremony, closing event, and I just remember, like, I think that there's being at the village is so beautiful because you're just like watching all these people from all over the world meet in one spot, literally all over the world, like every corner, and watching them interact or try to interact. And in the Youth Olympic Games, they're all like younger kids who may not have ever left their country, or they come from very differing situations. So I remember in that last night that the music got turned on and all the athletes started dancing. I just remember there being like, I think it was like a German girl, another girl from Fiji, a couple of Latin Americans, and then like 3 athletes from Ghana or something. And they were just like going at it, like dancing. One of them, I think the German girl was a break dancer. So she was getting in the middle and like dancing, and then like everybody got around that, and then she got out, somebody else popped in, and it was amazing to watch like that exchange of, kind of cultures, not really in that specific moment, but like different people from everywhere, just like bonding over music, over dancing, and just laughing and having a great time. Like being at the village is an experience that I would recommend to everybody if they can do it somehow. It's crazy.
So Max, we have to come soon to our end. Well, unfortunately, and sorry to the audience, we could not make all the questions. I only have one last question for Max.
I talk too much.
Only one last question. Any advice or final words that you have for our audience and our aspiring event professionals?
So I did write something down for that because I did like I wanted to have something to say. So I'm just gonna kind of read off it. I wrote it a few minutes ago. I hope it's okay and people can learn something from it. So I would say do what you need to do to figure out what your interests are and what you want to do with your life now. Whether it's whether it's volunteering for an event or enrolling in a class or doing research about different fields that interest you, and just kind of get yourself started if you're in a place like I was back in the day at UConn. Then I would say, don't forget where you come from and who's got your back, and stay humble. But also have an idea of where you're going or where you want to go. Because like just having that idea and having like somewhere to kind of aim, it helps you along the way. You might not be going straight there because it's almost impossible to do that. But I think having an idea is great. And then if it changes, it's okay. Like that happens. That's life.
Exactly.
And you know very well.
Yeah, I can very relate to your words, actually.
And then the last one I would say is always go with your gut. And after measuring a little bit, jump. But don't be afraid, but don't measure too much, because if you measure too much, then you're just gonna like think about it for too long, and you're never gonna actually jump and take that risk. So that's my
very nice words, Max. I can really relate to it as I have a similar path, I believe, and many of our other people that were showcased here, like also have the same path, like Cynthia.
When watching them, it was like I picked up a lot of things that we had in common and other things that you learned from them, and it's been really cool.
Exactly, and it's a cool network, like the event works as well.
Sure.
And before we go offline, I just wanted to remind everybody that our next episode will be next Wednesday, on the 8th of June at 12 Swiss time, where we will be showcasing an event professional who has a vast experience in many different major events. She's currently a consultant for Tokyo 2020, and she has recently become a mother. So it's also interesting to see how she can cope with both worlds, let's say. So I'm very excited to the next episode as well. Yes, Max?
Isn't the 8th of June Monday?
Probably, maybe. You're right. Sorry, it's a Monday. Small technical issues of the life. So, in any case, thank you, Max, for coming on Ignite Showcases. And I hope that Max's story motivated you and inspired those listening to not only go and try to work in events, but also go and try working in different countries, to immerse into different cultures and learn from them. So have a great rest of the day and see you next week.
See you. Thank you.
Ciao, Max.
Ciao.
Ciao, everybody.